Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jesus Nava. I'm in the Client Training and Education Department here at TradeStation, and it's a pleasure to be doing this event for everyone. We're going to talk about OptionStation Pro and how you can load option chains, how to analyze options, and all the little tools that help you in the options world. So before we get started, we have some announcements to make. Um, First of all, keep in mind that every symbol and idea that we talk about here is for educational purposes only. Active trading is not suitable for everyone. And if you'd like to read more about these disclosure statements, just go to tradestation.com and you'll find all the disclosures at the bottom of the page. I also want to take this opportunity to get everyone's attention to go to youcantrade.com. TradeStation Securities is hosting two channels in there: the Getting Started with TradeStation and the TradeStation Masterclass. Getting Started with TradeStation, which is the one that I have on the screen right now, it's a high-level presentation of TradeStation trading platforms. So if you're just getting started with TradeStation, this is a great place for you to come and learn about all the tools that TradeStation has available for you to trade, scan, and trade the markets. Again, that's the Getting Started channel inside of youcantrade.com. The TradeStation Masterclass channel is a channel where we dive more deeply into TradeStation's features and functionality. This is the place where we drill down and show you all the power that TradeStation has to offer, and it shows you how to take advantage of all that power as well. So keep in mind these two channels, and when you get a chance, please visit You Can Trade and check out the content for both. I also want to take this opportunity to invite everyone that is connected here today to attend our next session, which is on Thursday, January 16th at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time. The title of this presentation is The Art of TradeStation, Understanding Volatility. So make sure that you mark your calendars again for Thursday, January 16th, which is the day after tomorrow, at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time to learn about volatility. All right. So as I said earlier, I'm in the Client Training and Education Department. And what we do here is we try to teach you about TradeStation and how to use all the functionality and all the features that are available in our trading platforms. Today is all about OptionStation Pro. So we're going to talk about how to load options, how to put in some trades, how to analyze risk and reward graphs to see the profitability of options positions. And that's pretty much our topics today. So hopefully you'll enjoy the presentation and we'll take it one step at a time. By the way, we're all connected here in the TradeStation channel in YouTube. Keep in mind that the chat is public, so make sure you don't share any private information there. I have access to the chat, so if you want to interact with me, please do so. Submitting questions, I'll try to glance at the chat window once in a while to see if I can answer some questions live. If I don't get to your question, please don't take it personally. We have a limited time here, so if you have any questions that don't get answered in this presentation, we do have a great customer support team that takes questions 24 hours a day, and you're welcome to give them a call if you need an answer for a particular TradeStation feature. But let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to go switch over here to my TradeStation platform. Give me just a moment while I do that. If you see over here on my screen, you see that I have the TradeStation platform open. TradeStation OptionStation Pro has been fully integrated into TradeStation. So in order for you to open up OptionStation Pro, you do have to have TradeStation open. And in order for you to access OptionStation, just go to the Apps button here at the top of the TradeStation platform and click on the OptionStation Pro button. That will open up OptionStation Pro. It actually opens up as a separate application, so it fills up your screen very nicely. There are things you can do to your OptionStation Pro, like bump up the font size if you think that it's a little bit too small. So things that is going to make your use of the platform so much easier. So let's go ahead and take this application and break it down for you so that you know exactly where to go to find the information you're looking for. First of all, I want to point out at the different tabs that are right here at the bottom of OptionStation Pro. You can see that there are 4 tabs, and at any moment in your use of OptionStation Pro, you're going to be in one of those tabs. In fact, The one that is active at this moment is the one that is colored in blue. That's the one that is uh, active at the moment, and that's the one that is displayed on the screen, and that's where I see all my options. If I want to switch to any other tab, I just have to come down here and click the tab, and it switches for me very nicely. We'll come back and show you what you can do in each one of these tabs, but let's go and stay on the options tab for a moment, because I want to talk a little bit about loading options and looking at some of the information that's here in order to help you in the analysis of options trades. For example, we have all the expirations right here on the left-hand side. That's very clear. It tells you inside parentheses how many days are remaining before the expiration of that group of options. You also see if there's a different type of option. You know, you have weeklies, you have quarterlies. So the quarterlies and the weeklies are clearly identified. And the ones that don't say anything, or the ones that have the lighter shade of gray, those are my monthly options. So I can collapse and expand any of these expirations by clicking on this little button on the left-hand side. Makes it very simple. So right here, I've expanded the ones that expire in February, the third Friday of February. There's 37 days until expiration. The ones that expire in January, or the monthly ones that expire in January, are expiring this week. That's why I opened up February, so we can get a little bit more of live in the options that we're going to analyze. When you look at these options right here, TradeStation's OptionStation Pro makes it very simple for you to know which options are in the money and the ones that are out of the money. The ones that have the lighter shade of gray in the background, those are the options that are in the money. So if you look on the call side, we can see that these are the ones that are in the money. When you look on the put side, the ones that are below are the ones that are in the money. And you have the strike prices running right there in the middle. Do you guys see that little shade right there behind the strikes? A lot of people ask, like, what does that mean? What does the lighter shade of gray mean? Well, this shade of gray means that this particular underline is going to move within this area. By the way, I didn't point it out, but if you look at the top left corner of my OptionStation Pro, I'm looking at options of IBM. In fact, this whole section on the very top, let me just pull it up here. This whole section is going to give you information about the underlying asset. Specifically, I can see the last traded price, and I can also see historical volatility. That historical volatility is calculated on 90 days of trading activity of IBM. So not only do I see the options, but I only need to glance at the very top to see information on IBM. This information is used to calculate all the other valuation of OptionStation Pro. Specifically, if you look over here on the right-hand side, we have what's called implied volatility. Notice that there's an implied volatility value for each grouping of options. So whenever you see the percentage right there on that row, that is the average implied volatility for all the options that are under that expiration. Very simple. And the number that you see on the right-hand side, the one that is inside parentheses, and it has a plus and a minus, that is called expected move. So based on the implied volatility of those options, there is an expected move for the underlying. If you look at the ones in February, we can see that there is an expected move of $7.13. And it's $7.13 up and $7.13 down. So when you look at the shade of gray right here behind the strikes, it's just pretty much telling you what is the expected move of IBM, up and down. Notice that the current price is 136. So if based on the implied volatility, Microsoft is expected to move up $7.12 before the expiration, we can pretty much have the probability that IBM is going to be at 142 if it goes to the upside, or it's going to be at 128 if it comes to the downside. So this is not pretty much telling you direction of the price, but it's telling you the possibilities of IBM going in either direction, which I find very useful when you're trying to decide which strike price is it that you're going to trade. Is it within the price movement that I'm expecting? So those are things to think about when you're deciding what call or what put to trade. Also, if you look over here on the right hand side, this is a new feature. And when I say new feature, it's been added, I believe it was added a couple of years ago. When you look at option statistics and you hover over it, it opens up a bar giving you additional information on IBM and the options of IBM. At the top, you see implied volatility for all the options. Notice that at the moment, we see that it's 26. It's right there in the middle of the graph. The median is 20%, but on the right-hand side, it also gives you IV percentile. The IV percentile in this case is 86%, meaning that 86% of the time in the past 52 weeks, we've had lower values of volatility. It's an interesting measure, but you get these option statistics by just hovering over the tab right here on the right. And this is available for any underline that you load up in OptionStation Pro. You also get access to a very brief graph of IBM. In this case, you see the price activity of the underline, and you see a graph of the implied volatility per expiration. Okay, so those are the few things that I wanted to point out here in the option chain. Let's go ahead and select some of the options and see what other behavior and what other analysis tools are available in OptionStation Pro to help you make decisions. I see a comment here. Let's see. Are they going to integrate it into the workspaces? I believe Bill is asking about integrating OptionStation Pro as part of TradeStation. The reason why we separated OptionStation Pro and made it a standalone product is because we wanted to make sure that we capitalized on the use of your monitor. So if you have a big screen, OptionStation Pro could be expanded and use the totality of your screen without having OptionStation Pro, constrained inside of a workspace. Also, George is asking about activation rules in OCO and OSO to place stops on the option and underline. There's certain functionality, George, that we have available in OptionStation Pro when it comes to activation rules and OCOs, and we'll get to that in a moment. But I believe that your comment is about allowing OCOs and OSOs when you trade spreads, which is something that we haven't implemented yet. So just to answer your question directly, if you want to trade OCOs and OSOs on options, you have to do it on single legs. So hopefully that answers the question. So let me go back here to my OptionStation Pro and also talk about selecting options here. Let's suppose that we are bullish IBM. Current trading price is 135. We want to buy a call at 135, expecting the price of IBM to continue to go up, and that way we can make some profit. If I want to buy that call, I have to click on the asking price because that's the price that's being sold for. This call of a strike of 135 is sold at $4.10. When I click on this price, it not only highlights the row, giving me a visual of what I clicked on in relationship to everything else, it also pops up the trade bar from the bottom of OptionStation Pro, making it very clear about what is it that you want to trade. You haven't traded it yet, but it's getting ready for you to trade it. Now, if you don't want to trade it yet, you can click on this little button towards the bottom right, next to that place order button that's to hide the trade bar. But I want to point out something here inside the strike column. Do you guys see that line, that red and green line to the left side of the strike price column? That line is giving you profitability of the option, or pretty much it's telling you where you make the money. Do you make the money when the price of the underlying goes up or when the price of the underlying goes down? In this particular case, we are buying a call at 135. So we know that if the price drops, and notice that when we go up, the strike prices go down, or the price drops, and notice that that leaves us in the negative side or the red side of that line. So in order for you to make money or to be on the green side of that line, the price of the underlying needs to go up. In fact, that precise point where the line switches from red to green or green to red, depending on how you're looking at it, it's pretty much your break-even point. That I find it very interesting because it factors in the price of the call or the price of the put, and it gives you that calculation as a visual so you can see at which point your break even is. Okay, I see another couple questions here. Let's see if we can tackle those as we go along. Is OptionStation Pro ever going to allow the use of custom ELDs? At the current moment, that is not available. Eventually, I've heard conversations that yes, OptionStation Pro will allow custom ELDs, but not at this moment. So I know a lot of, or many users of TradeStation are still using older versions of TradeStation for that reason, but at this moment is not something that we have on the newest version of OptionStation Pro, but it's very possible that we will in the future. I don't have any information on that, unfortunately. Let's see. Option statistics, it would be good to have next earnings on the stats. Great suggestion, Dory. In fact, anybody that's using TradeStation right now, there is an application on the platform that allows you to make these suggestions, because I believe that's a great idea to include earnings date on the stats. So if you find something on TradeStation that you would like to see implemented, just come over here. Let me see if I can bring it up here on my TradeStation and show you. I pull up my TradeStation platform, and right here in apps, I don't see it. Did they remove it? Nico, I don't see it. Well, I think that when you go to apps, maybe it's on this version that I don't see it, but next to the TS Today button, I remember seeing a feedback button. Now, it may be because I just installed my TradeStation just now and I had some technical issues with it, but if you go to the apps, you should find a feedback button that allows you to submit suggestions to our developers and product managers, which I think it's your direct line to whomever is making the decisions on features on the software. So it's a great way for you to make your voice be heard. Okay, so just wanted to point that out. Let me switch over here to OptionStation Pro. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look. Someone's asking here about futures options. Eventually, yes, I see futures trading or futures options traded directly in OptionStation Pro, but it's something that is not ready yet. So you are able to analyze options on futures using OptionStation Pro, but you're not able to trade them right here. So you need another platform to do so for now. But eventually, I see it coming to OptionStation Pro, but again, I don't have much information on that. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at my platform again. So analyzing options. So we clicked on the strike price of 135. We said that in this example that we're bullish IBM. We're going to buy that call. The price is $4.10. A couple things that options traders are interested in. Right here on the order bar, we see two calculations going on. First of all, maximum loss. Maximum loss and maximum profit. Now, a lot of these calculations are going to be a little bit off because the markets are closed. However, this makes sense. My maximum loss makes sense. I'm not sure if you know why, but it's because of the mid price. The maximum loss is calculated on the mid price, which is $4. Even though the natural pricing is $4.10, the mid price is $4, which is the difference or the midpoint between the bid and the ask. And if you look at my quantity right here in my order bar, it's set to 5. So if every contract is going to be worth $400, if I'm buying 5, that's my total cost. So that my maximum loss right here is 2,000, but my maximum profit is infinity. So that little symbol that you see inside of maximum profit is infinity. So those two calculations come right up and you see exactly what is the potential of loss and profitability on this options trade. Now you can analyze this trade and take it one step further. For example, let me go and click on analyze here instead of trade. In fact, I can't place any trades right now because the markets are closed, but we are going to analyze them fully. So let me go ahead and click on analyze. When you click on analyze, something really interesting happens. You are switched to the analysis tab. Does everybody see that? So when you click on analyze, or when you want to analyze a graph of the options you're trying to trade, it just switches you automatically. Now, one thing that I want to point out here is how this window is divided. We have a panel right here at the top, which is the graph panel. That's the graph. And the panel right below it is exactly what is it that we're graphing. So down here, you're going to see not only theoretical positions, but also any open positions you have in your account. And it makes it very, very interesting because you can mix real positions with theoretical positions. And that way, you can see what effect would it have on your profitability or loss if you were to open up another position. So that's a very interesting thing to have when you're trading options and you want to create these simulated or simulations and see what effect a change in price or a change in positions would have in your account. This is really, really good to have. Let's go ahead and take a look at the graph for a moment. A lot of traders out there that trade options, sometimes they don't even look at graphs because they find them confusing. So let's try to break it down for you and try to highlight what is it that matters here in the graph and what is it that we're looking at. And before I do that, before I jump into the graph, let me see if I can take some of these questions that I find right here on the chat. Let's see. Okay, there's somebody's looking for a tool to assess if the option is over or undervalued, please. What is the minimum quantity to buy? Good questions. And in order for you to find options that are overvalued or undervalued, you would have to do that on TradeStation. TradeStation has some great analysis tools that allow you to find that information. In fact, when Michael does his presentation on Thursday, he'll probably talk about some of the tools that are in TradeStation that allow you to not only understand volatility, but also use it in your analysis. In regards to maximum or minimum to buy, in this case, I don't think there are limitations about the minimum. I mean, I can switch the quantity to 1. The default in TradeStation's OptionStation is 5, and that's why when I pulled up the trade bar, it had a 5, but I'm not aware of any limitations on quantities, okay? But that's something that we can investigate offline. All right. Let's go ahead and take a look at more functionality here in OptionStation Pro. So I did say that we were going to take a look at the graph. Do you guys remember what our maximum loss was on that call that we clicked on? The maximum loss was 2,000. That is automatically reflected on this graph. This graph has P&L right here on the left-hand side. And do you guys see where the 2,000 is? In fact, I can circle it for you right here, negative 2,000. So when you see that line extending all the way to the right, that's where the negative is. And it's in relationship to the price of the underline. Now, the price of the underline is right here, right? 135.85, which is somewhere right here, right? That's where the price is. In fact, these values that you see right here at the bottom, those are the price of the underline. So notice that as the price goes down, you have reached your maximum loss. The only way that this option makes money if it starts going down. Of course, at a certain point, you're going to be at the 0 line, which is right here. This is the 0 line. So anything above that, you're making money. And you can see that the graph is pretty much reflecting that. You have to cross the 0 line to start making money. And the lines go in a diagonal all the way to infinity because that's the potential profits. IBM can go up indefinitely. So that's interesting to look at. Now, there's 2 lines right there in this graph. A yellow line and a blue line. Very simple. The yellow line is just giving you what the option is worth right now. So we're talking about today. And then the blue line is just letting you know the value of the option at expiration. And as options traders, you know that there is a time component that affects the value of any option. And that's why we have those 2 lines, the yellow and the blue. So if you want to know the option, what the value of the option is right now, then you look at the yellow line. But if you want to look at the value at expiration, then you look at the valuation on the blue line. Now, there is a vertical line that has been added to my graph. It's right here. at $100.60. Not sure what it shows there. Maybe it was added automatically. But if you want to add these vertical lines, just click on this add button here on the far left of OptionStation Pro. Let me point to it. There's a little button here that is add. You can click on it to add these price slices that will work much as a sandbox. So you can create these simulations that let you know what the profitability would be if IBM were to go up or down a certain amount. In this particular example, if we leave that vertical slice right here, this yellow line, which has a price of $160, as shown here on the left, the valuation of the option right now, you can see the theoretical P&L is $10,000. Now, this is if and only if IBM were to go up to $160 right now, because we're looking at the yellow line. Does that make sense? So we're looking at the yellow line, and we can see that yellow is reflected here on their plot. You can see that in yellow letters, it says now, days to expiration is 37. So, which means that this simulation that you're creating right now, that if IBM were to go to 160, that would generate a profit of $10,600, but if it happened today. Now, I know the markets are closed, so it's impossible for it to happen today, but let's suppose that you are bullish and you think that IBM is going to go to 160 before the expiration of this option. Now, do we know when the expiration of this option is? Well, you can look right here on the top. Let me remove my camera. On the top right, there's a legend for the lines that you're seeing right here in OptionStation Pro. And you can see that, wrong. Okay, and you can see that, okay, there we go. And you can see that the two lines that you see on the top right are giving you the expiration or the date. The yellow line is now, and the blue line is February 21. So let's suppose that you think that IBM is going to go to 160 before the expiration of February 21st, which is kind of very optimistic if you tell me. If you tell me. In fact, one thing to realize that is a little bit too optimistic is this shade of gray that you find behind the graph. Why? Because this shade of gray is giving you probability of movement of IBM using implied volatility and historical volatility. So it's interesting that the graph is telling you what is the probability of IBM moving in either direction using standard deviations. I'm sorry, did I say implied volatility? I meant standard deviations. So it's using a calculation using standard deviations and historical volatility to make a prediction of what IBM is going to do in the future. And if you see this shade of gray, it goes somewhere between 122 and 155. Using two standard deviations. If you're somewhat familiar with statistics, you know that two standard deviations, it's going to include 95% of the values, meaning that in this particular graph, this shade is letting us know that there's a 95% probability that IBM will be within these prices, the 122 and the 155. So what's left for the 160 over here? We are outside the cone of probabilities. So is it possible for IBM to reach 160? Who knows? Maybe. But the probabilities don't tell us that that's the fact. So by looking at the graph, that's something that it's easy to see. But if before the expiration, IBM does go to 160, I can switch the plot calculation over here and go to this little drop down and set it to plot number 2, which is my blue line. Once I do that, I can see what the profitability would be at expiration. It's very close to what it was right now. In fact, you can see it in the lines. They're pretty close to each other. So the valuation is pretty much the same. So for a fact, if IBM were to go to 160, that would be our profit if we hold 5 contracts of the 135 call, which is the one that I clicked on. So you can see that this graph does provide you a different perspective about the option, and you start understanding the valuation and the possibilities of IBM going in either direction. Let's go ahead and take a look. Let me see if I have some other questions here in the chat that I can take as we go along. Uh, Craig is asking, do I have access to this in WebTrader? WebTrader, web trading is an application that it's a little bit simpler than what you see here in OptionStation Pro. So you can still load options and you have some calculated values, but it doesn't have all the bells and whistles that you find on the desktop version. So if there's something specific that you're looking for, I can tell you if it is or not, but in reality, they are different applications. One is web-based. This runs on the computer, which is more powerful, and it runs much faster. Not to take anything away from WebTrader, because I think it's a great tool also, because it adds that factor of mobility if you want to take your TradeStation anyway or anywhere you go. Okay. Has a great feature. Okay, Steve, thank you for the suggestion. Yes, I do agree with you. That is some great information about implied volatility over history of days. As we go along, we are wanting to add more features and more functionality to OptionStation Pro so that it works for everyone that's using it. Marcer is asking, I assume we can close our position partially too, then 3 remaining options to close, we sell. Yes, exactly. When you trade, you have full control of how you want to exit a particular position. So if we're holding 5 contracts of this call, then you can exit them in any way. You can exit one contract at a particular price and exit another contract at another price, and you can scale out of your position if that's what you choose to do. From who, Israel? How do I get different VWAP timeframes? That's something that is done on the TradeStation platform in charting. What I recommend, if you're asking any questions that I don't get to answer today, we do have a special event titled Ask the TradeStation Experts. We do this in the TradeStation Masterclass channel. So if you're interested in having a one-on-one, not a one-on-one, but a direct line of asking questions on the TradeStation platform, we have this session where you can come in and you drive the topic of conversation. It's titled Ask the Experts, but it's part of the TradeStation Masterclass channel in youcantrade.com. I think Nico is going to send a link to our channel so that you can have a direct link to that session. The volatility adjustments affects only simulated positions, not real positions. I think, that's an interesting thing you're saying, Chris, because I think it affects both, but I would have to test it. So we can test that on a different venue if that is the case. Marcia is asking, when opening an account with TradeStation, do we have access to futures trading platform and this options platform, that we have to pay for this one? All the platforms in TradeStation are pretty much free, depending on what pricing plan you have. So this is a conversation that you should probably have with your account representative to see what you get with what type of account. I know that the platform for you to trade options and futures is different than this one that I'm showing. OptionStation Pro is exclusive to trade equity options or index options. So if you want to trade options and futures, that's a different platform, but all our trading platforms for the most part are totally free. So that's something to talk to your account representative with. Okay, so let's switch over here to my TradeStation platform again and talk a little bit about trading. When you trade, let's suppose that, okay, we've made a decision. We want to go with this call. This is IBM. We can see the strike down here, 135. We can make some last minute changes to my order by clicking on these drop downs. You can change, the strike if you want. If you want to do a put instead. So these are drop downs that you can change. So if you want to go far out a little bit more, so let's say that you wanted to go to March instead of February. Let's go to the March monthly. Notice how March monthly has a different graph. So by only changing the expiration here on the trade bar at the bottom of my OptionStation Pro, I changed the calculation of the P&L. Notice how the probabilities of pricing here goes from 120 all the way to 154. So it did change a little. By the way, the standard deviations that are used in this probability cone, or the projected probability, is right here on the top. You see how it's set to 2? But I think by default it's set to 1. which is just a 68% chance that the price will be inside the shade. But it does give you a clear indication of if your assumptions are a little bit too optimistic or not. Okay, so always keep in mind that graphing is just something to help you out, and it's nothing to be afraid of. When we're ready to trade this, let's suppose that I want to trade this. I'm going to right click on this row for this call, and I'm going to click on trade. That's going to push up the trade bar from the bottom of the screen. This is 5 contracts at a price of $4, which is the midpoint between the bid and the ask. And I'm going to, well, I cannot place the order. I can do it as a GTC. Let's see if I can do a GTC and then place the order. It's giving me a warning that I'm placing a GTC. I'm going to say yes and yes. Okay, so that order is queued. So you can place orders after the market has closed or before the market opens as a GTC, and that order is going to be queued so that as soon as the market opens, the order goes through. Maybe it's not a smart idea to have an order out there for a midpoint price, considering that the price may change by the time the market opens, and I may not get the best price possible, or my order may not be filled at all. So sometimes, if that's the case, you can do other sorts of rules. For example, let me go ahead and manage that order. And in order for you to manage orders and positions, you come over here to the Manage tab. That is where you're going to see any active orders and any open positions in your account, and it'll give you the ability to manage them. Let's go ahead and take a look. I'm going to go and click on Manage. Right here on the top, in fact, there's 2 different panels here. This panel is all about orders. So you see filled orders, canceled orders, rejected orders, everything that is order related, you see it at the top. And if you want to see positions, you see them right here on this panel. In fact, you see that I have 3 different positions. I have AMAT, American Express, and Bank of America. From this view, I'm not able to see if I have shares of stock or if I have any options. I'd have to expand them using the little button here on the left. It expands and it lets me see what is it that I have on each one of those. But if you have any equity position, it'll show right here in this view so that you can manage your position. Maybe you have a position or a stock position on Bank of America and it's time to sell some calls, or maybe buy some puts that are going to be leveraged against that position of Bank of America. And you have some interesting, calculations here, like open P&L, your delta, and your trade cost as totals. So it adds up all those fields and it gives you a running total. If I want to manage my order, let me go ahead and collapse my filled, you're out, rejected, and here are my queued orders. I see my order for my IBM call. Notice that the strike price is 135, and I can right click on that row and I can say cancel the order, and it just transferred that to the canceled category. Makes it very simple. Okay, so let's say that we want to trade. Let's go back to the trade bar. The trade bar is empty because we already submitted that order, but let me right click on that order and I'm going to say create a duplicate order. The one that I just canceled, I can right click on it and create a duplicate. It sends it over here to the trade bar, and I can set an activation rule based on the underline. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to send I don't have any auto pricing features here, but I can send a market order to buy a call with a strike price of 135, but based on the underline, based on the price of IBM, which is the price of the stock. I can click on activation rule down here and click on the ellipsis to set my activations. This is something really, really interesting to do on options, because a lot of times you're going to make decisions on options based on what's happening to the underlying. So in this case, I can say if the price of IBM, I'll type that in, I'm going to add it. If the price of IBM is less than or equal to, and I'm going to type in 135. I'm buying a call with a price of 135, so maybe I want IBM to be at 135 or lower. So if that is the case, then I may want to buy this option. I'm going to click OK. And maybe I do want to specify a price, maybe, and I can tweak the price later if I want to, because I can say, give me a limit price, and maybe I'll improve my entry price, and maybe I'll say, I want to buy that option at $3.75 only if the price of IBM is at 135 or lower, which is my activation rule. So I'm going to send this as a GTC, and I'm going to place that order. And there it is. So let me collapse my URLs. My queued order is right here. Buy to open 5 contracts of the strike price of 135. This is a call. I have my price right there, $3.75. But this has an activation rule, which is not visible right now. I don't see. That's because by default, the column that displays this information is not visible. And that's something that you can do in OptionStation Pro. You can remove and you can add columns so you can see the information that you want. So as an exercise, I want everyone that is using OptionStation Pro right now to always go into their platforms and see what other columns are available. Because you may sit there and say, oh, TradeStation doesn't have this, doesn't have that, and it may just be a column that hasn't been turned on. So right here at the top, let me remove my webcam so you can see it. There's a little wrench. And a lot of these panels have a little wrench which goes into the customize field or the customize menu or the configure menu. When I click over here, it says customize columns. I'm going to click on advanced, which is the column that has, any activation rule that you set will be in the advanced column. I'm going to add it. And I'm going to move that column up, maybe put it next to my limit price. And I click OK. All right, so when you look at my order, you see there's the price. I want to buy it at $3.75, but only if IBM is trading at or below 135. Now that's very useful. And the same way that I'm setting up this entry with an activation rule, you can set exits with activation rules as well. For example, if I already have a position on IBM, it would show down here. In fact, I don't think I have any options position. Let's see. I have 1,000 shares of Bank of America. I have 200 shares of American Express, and I have 1,000 shares of Applied Materials. So I don't have any options positions. But if you did have an options position, you can right click from here, from the positions list, and you can say close this position. It'll bring up the trade bar, and most of the time what I show is how to add an activation rule to a closing transaction. So you may be interested in a particular call, like for example, this call of 135. But what happens if IBM, instead of dropping to 135, continues to go up? We see the current price is 136. What if it reaches 140? Do you still want to keep that call at 135? Maybe yes, because it's going up. But what if it drops to 130? Your call is at 135. IBM drops to 130. There may be no point in keeping that call anymore. So you may do an activation to close your position whenever the price of the underlying goes or drops to a certain level. I find it to be very useful, and you're making your decisions not only on what's happening to the price of the option, but also on the price of the underlying. Let's go ahead and take a look at some questions here that are coming here in the chat. All right. Let's see. Craig, I see your question about minimum to open up an options account. Recommendation, talk to our account representatives. I'm not really versed on account opening procedures. And I know there's been a lot of changes to pricing plans and things that we're giving out for free. Once brokerage companies decided to go with free commissions, there are some pricing plans in TradeStation that do that. So my best suggestion would be to talk to one of our account representatives and see what are the minimum funding and what is it that you get when you open up an account with TradeStation. Question, how do we do complex orders? One triggers OCO in the OptionStation Pro application. Thank you for submitting that question. And from within OptionStation Pro, we do not have the OCO functionality, But we can link OptionStation Pro to TradeStation. Let me show you how to do that, because a lot of times you do want to do an OCO on a particular option. Let's switch over to TradeStation for a moment. Let me use a different camera. Okay, if you look over here on the top of OptionStation Pro, we have a linking button. Everybody sees that yellow mark? Let me see if I can point to it here with an arrow. There we go, right there on the top right. That is a linking button. And if I were to click on the drop down, you see all the different colors that you can set it to. We have to remember the color, because if we go to TradeStation, we have to set TradeStation to that exact same color. So let me go over here to TradeStation. In TradeStation, I have, it didn't hide this menu. Let me go back to OptionStation Pro. There we go. Okay, let me go back to TradeStation. As you can see here in TradeStation, I have a matrix. If you've done OCO and OSOs in the matrix, it's an excellent and easy place to do OCOs and OSOs. So here, on the top of the applications, we have a similar linking button. I'm going to click on the drop down for symbol. And I'm going to choose a global link in the yellow color. The same thing here for charting, because I want to see a chart and I want to see the matrix loaded up on any call. Let's go ahead and use the same call that we were talking about, the call with a strike price of 135. Let me go back to OptionStation Pro. Let me hide my trade bar. I'm going to go to the Options tab right here on the bottom left. And from here, I'm going to, instead of clicking the bid or the ask, which you already saw that it generates the trade bar to pop up, I don't want that to happen. So instead of clicking the bid or the ask, I'm going to click on any value that is not the bid and the ask. You can click on delta, you can click on open interest, as long as it's on the side of the call or the put that you want to see. So if I click on the left side, I'm going to get the call. If I click on the right side, I'm going to get the put. So let me go ahead and click on the right side over here, jumping or skipping the bid and the ask. I click once, and that click is going to send that symbol to my matrix and my chart. Why? Because they are symbol linked by using the yellow color, as you can see on the top right. Let me go back to my TradeStation. And if you look at the symbol right here on my matrix, it's IBM with an expiration of February 21st. It's a call with a strike price of 135, and you can trade it right here on the matrix. Not only that, but you can also see a chart. Let me change this chart to a daily chart. So this is a daily chart of the call. Not only you can see the pricing or the historical pricing of IBM, you can also see the historical prices of this specific call and how it's been historically. This is a daily chart of the call. So if I want to trade OCOs and OSOs, I have to do it right here in TradeStation, and the linking feature makes it very easy for you to transfer the symbols over here. And I just have to click on attach OSO. I have to go to the ellipsis if I want to, or I can just use the defaults. The default is 50 cents. 50 cents is okay here. But as soon as I click on a buy or a sell, let's say that I click on a buy and I want to buy this. Let me open my column here. I click. This would have to be a GTC, so let me change the duration to GTC. Let me go ahead and click on $3.80. This is the GTC order. I'm going to say yes, yes to the confirmation, and there it is. So with the matrix, I am able to send an OCO for an options leg. You can also use chart trading. If you look over here on the right, we can see those three orders right here on my screen. The order to get into the position, and then the bracket to manage that position. By the way, let's set something very clear. OCOs and OSOs, I'm sorry, I was mixed here with the cameras. OSOs and OCOs are only available for single legs. They're not available for spreads at the moment. This is something that we've always wanted to work, and I'm not sure if our developers are doing any work on making OCOs and OSOs available on spreads, but for now, they are available on single legs, and you just have to come over here to the TradeStation platform to do it. If you wanted to do a spread in OptionStation Pro, I haven't shown you that, and I think we're running out of time here, but I wanted to show you that very quickly. In OptionStation Pro, I'm going to come over here, and let's say that I want to do a spread, a vertical spread between the 130 and the 140. I click on the 130, it gets highlighted. I hold down the control key on the keyboard. So that's the trick. You hold down the control key on the keyboard and you can make this multiple selection. So I can click on the bid price of the 140. I was holding the wrong control key. Sorry, I have two keyboards here. So let me repeat that again. I click on the ask price of the 130. If I want to do a vertical, this is a vertical debit. So I click on the ask price of the 130. I hold down the control key. And then I click on the bid price of the 140. And you can see how they're both highlighted, meaning that they're both sent to the trade bar. There you can see the buy and the sell. And you can see how it recognizes those two legs in combination make a vertical. And you can see that that's a debit because it doesn't have the letters CR in parentheses. Whenever you trade a credit spread, the price will have a CR next to it, identifying it as a credit. When you don't see the CR, it's just a debit spread. Let's take a look at some questions here. We're almost ready to close the class. Yes, this class is being recorded, and I think Nico has submitted the link to the recording. Make sure that you save it if you want to refresh the content. Will the OSO fill limit orders on options? Not really sure what you mean, but OSOs can also be limit orders. Yes, that OSO that I sent earlier where I submitted an entry, when I submitted that entry at $4.80 and I have that exit bracket, the profit target is actually a limit order, if that's what you're asking. Can you have charts in the same window? Yes, definitely. You mean charts in OptionStation Pro? Like historical price charts? No. Historical price charts are available on the TradeStation platform. And if you use the linking functionality that I just showed you, it's very simple. It's just to click on an option and have that load in your TradeStation very quickly. Can you set a trigger to open close a spread based on the premium prices? You can set, yeah, definitely. You know, when you create a spread, like for example right here, this is the premium for that particular spread. It calculates the bid and the ask, and then you can set the price that you want to enter. So you can pretty much say, well, I want to pay, instead of $5.60, I want to pay $5.50, and you can drop the price to whatever premium you want to pay, and then the order will sit there until the price reaches your desired price. And you can do that on the closing side as well. So if you right click on any position and you choose to close it, you can set the price and it'll calculate the premium for you. Let's see, is it possible to go back in time when reviewing trades, option prices before the underlying moved for? You can load historical trading activity. That is something you can do. I'm not sure if that answers your question, but you can go into the trade manager of options, not OptionStation. You go into the trade manager of TradeStation. You can load every single options trade that you did. Right here, OptionStation Pro. Let me go here to the Manage tab. Let me show it here. The top panel gives you today's orders only. So that's something that we don't have historical orders here in OptionStation Pro, but if you pull up TradeStation, you'll find historical trading activity there. Okay, your question, how to search for bull put spreads for a given instrument and a range of expiration dates sorted by risk-reward ratio. It's interesting that you say that because there's the search tool here in OptionStation Pro that I haven't looked at, but this just gives you potential positions that you can trade based on a particular outlook. Let me do this very quickly. I think we have about 5 minutes to finish off the class. Let's talk about IBM Notice here the strategy says bullish, limited risk. Let's suppose that we are bullish and we think that the price is going to go up by a 15%. So I'm going to add a 15 right up here. So we're bullish and we think the price is going to go to 156. I'm going to hold this until the end of February, 45 days. And the volatility is going to remain the same. If you look over here on the right, these are the strategies that are going to be included. And if I scroll to the right, it's going to rank the results by projected profit. If you go to this drop down, you can sort the results by risk, reward, the ratio, the projected price, any of the fitness values that are here. Let me do it by projected profit. Projected profit. And then I just click on run search. And this is going to search every possible position that would have generated the best projected profit. Projected profit's right here. Okay, so this is the projected profit. Notice how they're sorted, the maximum being at the very top. And what this means is that if your outlook were to come true, these are the positions that would have generated the most profit, and only if your outlook were to come true. So let me just emphasize that. You know, this is not making any sort of suggestions. It's just saying that if what you plugged in really materializes, then these are the options that would have provided you the best return. All right, let's go ahead and see last minute questions. Let's see. Okay, the probability graph for the spread, for example, in any of these spreads, let me go here and uncheck. I'm going to uncheck before I even end. I'm going to uncheck call strategies and I'm going to run the search. So this gives me a vertical. If I wanted to analyze this, I'm going to scroll all the way to the right and there's an analyze button. Let me do that again. This sends the vertical over here to the graph. Let me uncheck the single. So now I have the graph right here for this vertical. And the analysis of the graph is pretty much the same as the other one. You know, the interesting thing about this graph, or the different thing about this graph, is that you have a maximum profit and a maximum loss. In fact, if you look over here at the bottom, the vertical gives you those calculations right here. The maximum profit is $1,900 and the maximum loss is $600. And those values are reflected right here in the graph. The blue line is right at negative 600. The blue line here on this other side is right here at 1900. But you can see clearly in which direction the price needs to go in order for you to be on the profitable side. From this point, which is about $141, all the way up, that's where you make your maximum profit. So it's very clear to see right here on the graph, and you see the probability of IBM going in either direction. Okay, let's see last minute questions. Can you also right click on an option within an option chain for different types of option positions, vertical, butterflies? What you can do, and yes, that's very true. If you're in an option chain, let me switch over here to my OptionStation Pro, and you go to the options, you can right click on any option, and then you can buy any vertical or any spread. I think instead of asking a question, I think Synergy was just making a statement. You can right click and select any of the spreads here, or you can go to the spread selector up here and let OptionStation Pro organize your options for you. All right. So that's pretty much all the information that I had for you guys. I want to express my gratitude for everyone taking the time out of your schedules to come and visit us and learn a little bit about OptionStation Pro. I just want to remind everyone that on Thursday at 4:30 p.m. we have a follow-up class to options in which we're going to talk about volatility. So make sure that you mark your calendars for Thursday. The presenter is going to be Michael Burke, and he's going to show us some very interesting things about volatility and how we should use it. Thank you, everyone. Also, remember to go to youcantrade.com and check out the channels that TradeStation is hosting, the Getting Started with TradeStation and the TradeStation Masterclass. Everyone, thank you for your time, and I hope everyone has a great afternoon. Goodbye, everyone.